How do you tell a man who thinks he's a god that he's wrong when he controls your life? In 37 AD, Rome welcomed a new emperor, Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus. But the world would remember him by his nickname, Caligula, meaning little boots. He was the son of the popular general Germanicus, and when he took power after the death of Tiberius, the empire breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, someone young, charming, and well-liked. At first, Caligula played the part. He granted amnesty to political prisoners, paid off debts, and threw grand games in the Colosseum. People cheered, senators praised him, even historians wrote of a golden beginning. But just a few months in, something changed. Whether it was due to a mysterious illness or power simply going to his head, Caligula's reign took a dark, almost theatrical turn. He began speaking of himself not just as emperor, but as a god among mortals. He didn't mean it metaphorically, he meant it literally. He claimed to be the reincarnation of multiple deities, Jupiter, Apollo, even the goddess Venus. He built massive golden statues of himself and ordered temples to be constructed in his honor. Priests were instructed to offer sacrifices in his name. People had to bow, swear oaths, worship him. But this wasn't just religious excess, it was about domination. Rome had seen mad rulers before, but Caligula made madness into a spectacle. He didn't want to be loved. He wanted to be feared. And worst of all, no one dared stop him. The Senate, once Rome's proudest institution, was reduced to a terrified audience, clapping and praising a man who believed thunder was his personal applause. Caligula's transformation from prince to god was just the beginning, and what followed was darker, stranger, and more humiliating than Rome had ever seen. What do you do when your emperor stops pretending to be sane? You play along or you die. By the second year of his reign, Caligula's god complex wasn't just disturbing, it was dangerous. He began using his divinity as a tool of political humiliation. Rome's senators, the so-called elite of the Republic, were reduced to groveling sycophants. They didn't debate anymore. They didn't legislate. They performed like slaves on stage, clapping and kneeling at every word from their divine ruler. And then came the horse. His name was Incitatus, a prized stallion Caligula adored. But this wasn't just favoritism. This was theater. Caligula had a marble stable built for Incitatus. The horse had purple blankets, a royal color, a golden trough to eat from, and even his own household staff. Servants attended to him. Guards kept noise away before his races because Rome couldn't afford to distract the emperor's favorite beast. Then Caligula made a proclamation. He would appoint Incitatus consul, the highest elected office in the Roman Republic. The Senate didn't laugh. They applauded, because they understood exactly what this was, a humiliation ritual. Caligula was mocking the very idea of Roman leadership. "If I can make a horse a senator," he was saying, "then what are you worth?" It wasn't madness for madness's sake. It was control through absurdity. And the more ridiculous it became, the more dangerous it got to speak against it. And it didn't stop with the horse. Caligula reportedly forced senators to run alongside his chariot like the slaves. He made generals dress as women and dance for entertainment. He ordered citizens to celebrate fake military victories and punish those who didn't show enough enthusiasm. To defy him, even silently, meant death, or exile, or worse, public humiliation before execution. Rome was no longer a republic. It was a stage. The senators were actors, and the emperor, he was both god and playwright, rewriting the rules of reality with every insane decree. No matter how powerful a man thinks he is, a knife still cuts the same. By 41 AD, Caligula's rule had pushed Rome to the brink. He had declared war on the sea and commanded his soldiers to collect seashells as spoils. He emptied the treasury for golden statues of himself. He committed open incest, mocked the gods, and reportedly laughed as men were tortured for his amusement. But what finally broke the illusion of his divinity wasn't one grand betrayal. It was the slow, silent fear boiling over among those closest to him. The Senate hated him. The people feared him. But the final blow came from those who stood at his side every day, his own bodyguards, the Praetorian Guard. On January 24th, the young aide Caligula exited the theater after a public performance. The guards who once swore to protect him surrounded him in a corridor. One stabbed, then another, and another. It wasn't a swift assassination. It was a frenzy. They didn't stop at Caligula. His wife was murdered. His young daughter, barely more than a toddler, was killed by having her head smashed against a wall. The god emperor was dead, and Rome rushed to scrub his memory from history. In death, Caligula left behind no heir, no stability, and no redemption. The empire descended into chaos again, but his story lived on, burned into Roman memory, not just as a cautionary tale of madness, but of unchecked power, because Caligula wasn't just crazy. He was a reflection of what happens when a system allows one man to become everything: ruler, god, judge, executioner, and clown. He turned a republic into a joke, forced its leaders to laugh, and dared them to say otherwise. And in the end, the laughter stopped. Not because he changed, but because those around him finally stopped pretending.